Good morning, everybody. This is John Spielk with GAI Insights. Excited to share with you some great new things today with our AI analysts. And today is sponsored by CustomGPT.ai, a fantastic way to build your own GPTs and to be able to do it in an easy, cheap, and safe way. So with that, I'm handing over to David DeLallo, who's going to take us through today's articles.
All right. Thank you, John. Yes, we have 5 articles that we'll be looking at today. One of them pulls in another technology, quantum. It's not dead, although still not ready yet, maybe another 10 years. And we will look at the Pentagon has tapped Scale AI for some help. And then we'll go through an article that actually had collected some GPTs that people are creating to use at work, and we will take a look at those and share which ones we liked off that list and maybe talk about any that we may have created for ourselves. So, Ankaj, get us going.
Okay, thanks, David. So the first one that we have for today is from Adobe. So Adobe has added GenAI to its Adobe Acrobat product, and you can now easily chat with any of your documents.
All right. I picked myself for this one since there's only 3 of us today, and I would rate it optional. I I read this and my reaction was like, well, it's about time. I mean, this is like the perfect like use case, right, for Adobe Acrobat. That the tool allows you to talk to documents just like you would right now if you put it into ChatGPT. And you can get it into the product. John.
Sorry about that.
And interesting thing though to keep an eye on, like right now it's free in beta, and apparently then they're going to try to charge for it once it's fully in production. So I'd have a hard time paying extra for this myself, considering you can do this in ChatGPT, where you get like other use cases that you can use it for as well. It does say it's going to expand the capabilities to some ChatGPT like capabilities where you can do stuff outside of this document. But like, why would I go into Adobe Acrobat to do those other things? So anyway, that's my take on it. I don't know what you guys thought.
I'm with you, Dave. I gave it an optional. I think we're starting to see this, right? More and more companies that have software products out there are just adding an AI component to it, a Gen AI component to it. I think it's going to just be expected, just like every application has a drop-down menu. Back in the day, that wasn't available, right? You had to like type everything you needed. I think these are just going to be standard features. I was also surprised that it said it was beta and that they weren't going to charge while this is in beta, but they're going to charge in the future. I don't know how they're going to justify, that when, like you say, we can just pull the document, do it somewhere else. So anyway, I just marked it optional. I think it's, good to know, but every company is going to be doing this, right?
Yeah, I put it as optional as well. Although I do know, I'm reminded of the saying, I forget which pundit said it, about how technology starts as magical, then becomes a feature, then becomes invisible. I mean, it was only November of 22 that this would have been like, wow, I can talk to my documents, and now it's like, this is with you guys. Why haven't you done this already? So anyway, we're getting to invisible pretty quickly.
That's right.
I know, especially given the last article where people have created their own GPTs that do more than what this is doing.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Clearly optional.
Yes.
What's next, Akash?
Okay, so the next one is from a startup called Optimus, and they have raised a seed round of $35 million to develop a foundational model focused on biology. And they are saying that it will be different from the current models because current models only focus on one aspect of biology, but they are sort of combining multiple aspects.
Right. What do you think about this one, Tanya?
Yeah, so I marked it, definitely important for those who are in life sciences, optional probably for the rest of the of our audience. A couple of things that I thought were, are worth noting, right? This is a company that is backed by significant leaders, coming from Google DeepMind. It also has ties to another company that we have reviewed here in the past called Oken. The other thing is they're focusing on biology, which the article kind of talks through. Hey, that's not very simple data. Like that is personal, private data that they have to work with, gather it. They're not just going out to the internet and just getting data like that. Like they're using very sensitive clinical data. So from that perspective, I thought, hey, there's some probably good as a use case for pharmaceuticals who are doing this as well. This is probably a good article for them to become familiar with. And then the other thing that I made a note was the amount of money, right? $35 million. I mean, it's a lot, but I just feel like, wow, some other companies are raising way more than that. So just got me curious, like, how is this company gonna do? But yeah, overall, I gave it an important, like I say, for life sciences to read up on. It's a very short article as well.
Yeah, I rated it important, not because they have better corporate picks, because the French, I mean, they always have like a few hairs out of place, but look okay, They in addition to being a handsome management team, I think the more general argument is that if you're you go back to our wins framework and you think about organizations that are holding a lever, that is, a critical part of their wins work adds a ton of value, as is true here. These folks are vertically integrated. It's really about, I think, the large language model and access to proprietary data. So you think about what other industries are like this. Well, there's a bunch in industrial, certainly aircraft engines, elevators, John Deere in farming, So I think it's an important article to understand the relationship between the intelligence of the large language model and access to data, and how that's going to be a competitive advantage if it adds value in the holding a lever kind of way that we talk about in our article. So I rated it important because of that.
Interesting. I had sided with Tanya in optional for the general audience. But you may have just swayed me. And since Tanya rated it important for life sciences, let's go with important on this one.
Very good.
I agree. Makes sense.
All right. Next.
Okay. Next one is from Pentagon. So Pentagon is collaborating with Scale AI or using Scale AI to create a comprehensive test and evaluation framework for Gen AI in the Defense Department.
John, what'd you think?
I put this as optional. I guess I was a little concerned that I think it is important that they're starting to set standards for how do you evaluate the quality and truthfulness of AI models, and obviously the military, the DoD, given its huge budget and importance, their standards certainly influence standards across all organizations. I just thought it was kind of interesting that they only have one company doing this. If I were them early on, I would want like 2 or 3. And maybe that's just an artifact of how they do procurement, but this is such a vital area. So I put it as optional. Seems early. They've awarded this and so forth. So like that, I put optional for those reasons.
I thought, why Scale AI? Like, why pick them out of everybody? And also had the same reaction of why just one. I'm like kind of hoping that maybe this is like the result of Scale AI happened to like decide to make a announcement, and maybe has like a press release somewhere on this, and that's why they're named, and maybe there are other players behind it. But I mean, they've chosen someone. I mean, first of all, they're one of the companies that has gotten the most criticism about the way that they are using people in third world nations to label data, which is what they do, right? Don't they sell data sets, et cetera, two companies.
Mhm.
So yeah, that just the choice of them kind of perplexed me, but so it almost made me want to say important, because it feels like other LLM providers should know, like, kind of who's coaching the government on this, and maybe raise an eyebrow and say, like, hey, why and why not us? But the general AI leader, probably is not overly concerned. So I ultimately said optional.
I went with important. I went with important from the perspective of the framework, what John was mentioning. I do think that we don't have enough frameworks yet available, standards yet available to kind of guide how we're going to test and evaluate, these models, and have structure, right, to how we're going to test the safety and then confirm the safety. We've talked in prior calls about the quality testing, right? That companies are not asking, like, how do we quality test our model throughout time if the model is always changing? So to know that there's a possibility of coming up with a framework, which is what the article is talking about, that they're going to be proposing that, and they talk a little bit about how they would do that. I think it's an important an important aspect that's for us to have. So many frameworks have come out from the government, especially, if you were going to do business with them, right? You want to know ahead of time, like, what do I have to comply to, even to maybe influence if they seem too hard on those requirements. So I marked it important from that perspective. As far as the actual vendor, when I read this, because it was the only vendor that was listed, I thought, okay, it's Scale AI's PR who put this out there. But I can't imagine the government is just working with one company.
Yeah, and this is just specific to military applications, and how how LLMs could either help them or hurt them. So I think I'm going to rate this one optional, given that if it was broader standards for everybody, then I feel like it would be very important, but it's just for the military. So I feel like it's an interesting article, as we've all discussed, but probably optional for the AI leader. All right. What's next?
Okay. So next one sort of combines quantum with generative AI, and using these two advanced technologies, now scientists have generated a viable cancer drug candidate.
All right. I picked John. You would start off on this one.
Yeah, I thought I would say it's important. Toward the end of the article, they note that all the stuff that was done here could also be done on just classical computers, but the efficacy of and I couldn't quite understand if they were running the generative AI models on the quantum machines, or they were taking the molecules that had been demonstrated or been proposed by the generative models, and then testing them in a in silico molecular model on the quantum machines. So anyway, it was interesting. I didn't think quantum was developed enough to actually do this kind of modeling at this, in stuff outside of cryptography or communication. So I'd rate it as important. Certainly, I'm just reminded of that wonderful idea that Ray Kurzweil put out there in 1998, called the law of accelerating returns, which is technology enhances knowledge, enhances technology. So the speed of increase is increasing, the calculus of understanding, and it just certainly plays in that way. So I'd rate it as important.
Exponentials of exponentials, right?
Exactly.
What did you think, Tanya?
To be honest, I didn't get to read this because I focused on the next one, the 20 GPTs.
Okay. I had gone optional personally, because of the big reveal at the end that they didn't actually test this against doing the same on classical computing infrastructure, and that would, to me, make it important. Like, if they actually compared and found like a speed up doing it this way.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting that they only used a 16 qubit computer, and it was from IBM, by the way. So kudos IBM, because there's ones much bigger ones available. I think IBM has gotten up to like 1,000 qubits or something like that.
Really? Okay.
So yeah, I guess, I mean, maybe I'm sure it was like cheaper and more accessible. I also wondered like where they ran it, like, because there is kind of like quantum as a service from IBM, at least they used to offer it. So it was really interesting to me see this, but yeah, not given the comparison, I kind of went with optional. But
Okay.
if you can justify further, John, your important rating for the AI leader, I will.
Just I think that senior executives a lot of times will get a word or two. They may not understand the underlying thing, but they're curious about it. No, the quantum is different and so forth. And so for let's say that you're in any organization that has very high compute needs, like certainly banks and so forth are worried about quantum, communications companies, and some exec says to you, buttonholes you and says, "Hey, David, did you see that thing where they're making progress with quantum computing on should we be worried about that?" I think you don't want to be the person that says, "Oh, what do you mean? Where is it?"
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. It's good to put it on the radar that this is being explored as a potential next step, or maybe alternate for doing calculations on those hard to get GPUs. So we'll go important, and we will come to the last article, I believe. Kaj.
Okay, the
You are.
last one is around GPT. So this is from Lenny Rechiski. So he writes a very famous newsletter on product management called Lenny's Newsletter, and he has shared some examples of 20 GPTs that people from different companies are using for their regular office work.
Yeah, and I think he said that when he put out like the call for receiving GPTs that people are using, that he got 300 responses or something. He got a very overwhelming
Right.
answer. So cool to see that lots of people are creating these. I know I've created some. I know Adam has created some on our team. So I thought maybe how we would address this article is to go around the horn here and see what everybody's favorite use case was on this list of 20 and why. And Ankaj, you're always kind of like the silent man behind the curtain here, so I'm putting you on the spot today. Which one called to you and why?
Sure, David. So, David, my favorite is the first one. So, refine new product copy one, but slightly different use case for me. So, instead of the product documentation, maybe it sort of modifies or customizes your slides with your brand guidelines, product nomenclature, or other sort of different uh, kinds of guidelines and rules that you have related to developing your presentations in line with your company's sort of rule books.
All right, Tanya, how about you?
So I landed on 1 as well, 8 and 12. So I had 3 favorites. So 1, obviously, what Ankash covered. I was just like, yeah, that's just phenomenal, right? Feed it all of your stuff, and everything will come out in the right brand. 12, what I liked was, and this is real, right? I mean, we've had Zoom taking meeting notes since over a year, right? Just this idea of you're having meetings with your customer. You don't have to go, for those of you who are in sales, go into the CRM, make all of your notes, right? But you can now just have it all automatically. So I think that that's an incredible productivity gain, and even clarity. It's not just I don't have to type, but it also helps you like remember things, because it's all summarized for you. So I like 12. And then the other one I like was the one about the goals. Was that number 8, maybe? Writing goals at the beginning of the year. We all know how long that can take. And when you manage, a department of 30 people, to make sure that everybody is submitting their goals and that they're all aligned and that you have conversations. I mean, it takes a good month, if not longer, right, to get that process. So
I
I
am
love this
totally-
idea.
I am totally guilty of, I think I never wrote my annual goals at McKinsey, maybe once. But nobody really pressed us on it at the time, so I got away with it. But this would have probably helped me do it. So this was a notable one for me too. What about you, John?
There were two. One is the third one that talks about research findings and understanding what we already know. That's kind of relevant for what I do now. Back when I was at PwC and I had about 300 people reporting to me, I would have liked number 20, which is I would love to have them interact with the virtual me, the clone, before we had meetings and so forth. That would have been fun. So I'd say three now, 20 in my own. Once we grow GAI Insights into a big company, 20.
That's right. Yes, I noted number 20. I tried to make GPT a clone of myself. I have a GPT that I created called Write Like Me, so that if I want to put something in there and say like, hey, check this like for tone and any improvements and see if it like improves it, or if I have like a bunch of notes and I want it to give me a first draft, I will like put all my notes in and say, hey, write the first draft, and it will, do it in my tone. And that one's pretty effective. As far as what's on here, the other one that was notable was not for me personally, but for number 10, using it to create documentation. This one was talking specifically about data pipelines, but just I know, from experience, like it's really hard to get the folks working on these projects to document, right? Like everybody hates it, but like it's so critical to do, and particularly now, right, when we're working with technologies where we're kind of still like in the learning phases, like even if you're a software engineer, et cetera, this is all still new. So I think that this ability to document faster will be like so useful for companies. The one thing that I thought about as I was reading about this, now I don't experience this quite as much with my writing GPT, but there's another one that I made to actually help summarize these calls, and it goes off the rails all the time. Like I will use it for a day, it works. The next day I go back in, it's not giving me the instructions correctly, or it's spitting out the wrong thing. I go back into the tool. This is with ChatGPT, and say, hey, how can we harden these instructions? It's not working. We work on it together. And then it doesn't work again. So I would love to hear from these people, like, does your GPT work consistently if you're doing it through ChatGPT? Or I wonder if they're using like another product. Maybe they're using custom GPT or sponsor. But I tend to wonder like if people are experiencing the same frustration. I may have to do a LinkedIn post and ask people about that.
Sounds good. All right.
We are done for the day.
Well, Akash, do you have our summary total?
Oh, that's right. Our summary. Akash, how did we do?
Just bringing it up.
Yeah, interesting. So nothing essential today then. There we go.
I think we had one or two importance.
Unless the last article, I mean, it could be essential because they're really good ideas.
That's right. We should rate the last article. I think we're calling it essential to get ideas, right?
All right. Yep. I'm there.
All right.
Essential. So let's just do it. So we have the Anka, should we just do it verbally? How are we doing?
Yes, John. So sorry about the presentation. It's not coming up.
No problem.
So we have one important, one essential, and three optional.
Right. So the important is the
Bio
Optimus.
Yep, Bio Optimus, and then optional is Adobe, and the optional is the quantum enhancer AI and Scale AI.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. All right. And essential GPTs abound. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
All righty. Very good. Well, thanks everybody. Hope you found this helpful. We love doing it. And again, want to thank customgpt.ai, the easy way to get started and make yourself smarter and your organization better. That's it from GAI Insights today. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Signing out.